Hello everyone and welcome to another Minecraft Snapshot video. It's 22W13A and I want to kick this one off by letting you know that next week I won't be able to cover any of these snapshots or betas, unfortunately. But anyways, let's jump into this week's snapshot where we have the Allay mob being added to Java. I've also got some prototype footage to show you and we get to hear what it sounds like. There's also the ancient cities. We've seen those before, but now they're improved and they've got new loot tables too. And although I won't be able to cover next week's updates, I do have an amazing video about the Allay on the way for you, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to catch it. This one's going to be a good one. But anyways, I'd like to point out that the Minecraft beta and preview editions came out today as well. And inside the game, all seems to be normal and as we've seen it before, except for the night vision and darkness effects, which create some weird funkiness with the colour inside of the Bedrock game. But anyway, we're going to be focusing on Java Edition in this video. I also wanted to take this moment in time just to remind you that this still exists and forever may it live on in infamy. The warden with a bow tie and a stick dancing away. Yes, I know it's not very relevant, it just amused me greatly. So we start off today with the Sculk Shrieker, as there's been big changes to this block and I've had to conduct an experiment to find out if this has been put back into the game, and it has. So previously we saw that this wouldn't be able to generate from killing mobs at the Sculk Catalyst, but now you can see that a couple of them have popped up here. And so the Sculk Shrieker has been given a new block state that stops it from summoning the warden, meaning that you can farm it again, but it will have this tag, you can see it on the right hand side, can summon, and that is set to false. This tag will also be present if you put one in the world using a command, if you place it down yourself manually in creative mode, and if you place one down in survival, it'll have the same tag. However, if you find one that's naturally generated, when we look at the tag you can see that it's set to true. So this means you can farm the block again, but if you want to make a warden summoning farm, you'll have to build it on location where you find one of these that's naturally regenerated. It also means that you can use it as an aesthetic building block without having to worry about summoning the warden. It will, however, make a bunch of noise, but that's only if you've got the Sculk sensors nearby. We're now going to look at the changes in 22W13A. It might not look like much, but this one right here is going to be a big deal. First of all, the other two changes. You used to be able to put any block on top of a note block to stop it from making a sound. Now you'll have to use a wall block or a carpet, and that doesn't apply to a moss carpet, for example. And then to match consistency with the boat with chest, the minecart recipes for TNT, the hopper, the chest and the furnace, they are all now shapeless, meaning that you can just sort of create them in any which way in a crafting bench. The real big change, the game changer if you like, is what happens to these items when they are destroyed. They now actually pop off as their original item instead of separating into a chest and a minecart, which makes these recyclable. For example, you may have a lot of minecart hoppers being used in your farms to pick up items, and then they are entities that sit in the world. Now, because they separate apart, it means that a player always has to go to a crafting bench, put them back together again, but this means that then from this inventory you could take this out and put it back into the world again. So that allows you to optimize your farms to not have lots of these minecart hoppers sitting around. Now this doesn't mean that you need to change your farms, but it's definitely going to be optimal not to have them in your world. So from this we can probably expect to see a lot of farm designs getting some new Redstone additions. So now we move on to the Allay in Java edition, and just a reminder, I've already covered this mob in 2 videos here in the channel, and there seems to be some serious issues in this snapshot where I can't even teleport to another structure to show you where they naturally generate. As we've seen on Bedrock Edition though, you can find them inside of the Woodland Mansion, inside of these cages. There are these cobblestone rooms, and they have like 2 to 3 Allays in each of them. The other place you can find them is at the Pillager Outposts. The cages that appear on the outside will sometimes have, again, a handful of Allays trapped inside of them. So the Allay mob moves around the world freely and can be given an item by the player. The Allays then look for that item in the world so that they can go and pick it up, and then it'll bring those items to the player, as you can see this one just did. But if a note block has been activated near the Allay, then for the next 30 seconds it will try and drop off those items in front of the note block. If you interact with an Allay with an empty hand, you can then take away that item and it will no longer search for them in the world. It should also be noticed that they can't distinguish between MBT data, i.e. one book having a different enchantment from the other, they would treat all of them the same. But they can pick up non-stackable items, which means you can use the Allay to filter them in a filtering system. So let's now talk about how the Allay is different in Java from Bedrock. It's basically to do with their movement speed. They tend to like to fly off in this direction quite a bit, I've noticed, and that can be annoying because they drop off some items and then they fly off for a bit and it takes them a while to come back and pick up these new ones. So where they're slower, they seem to be less efficient. But that lack of speed also makes it easier to walk up to them and interact with them too. Their throwing angle is different, and as you'll see here, they just throw it against the side of the hopper. So you could say on Java that just means you have to lower it down a bit, and that's fine. The other thing is, when there's items on the ground, they don't seem to fly straight to it like they do on Bedrock. They idle around a lot. Sometimes it takes them a bit of time to get back over here. And look, that one's flying off in that direction again. It's now stuck down here doing nothing. Yeah, I've also noticed sometimes they just sit around for a little bit. And I think this is intentional. I think they're trying to make the Allay a little easier to interact with, but the compromise then is that it seems way less efficient at doing its job. That one just dropped off some snowballs, flew over there, and we got a bunch sitting on the ground here. So how about those new Allay sounds? We have ambient sounds for when they have items, and then when they don't. And these come in multiple varieties. And as you can hear, they're quite magical in nature, but also a little bit on the piercing side, in my opinion. Then here is the deaf sound. The next two just have one sound for flapping, and then for when they're hurt. Then when an item is given to them, or taken away. And lastly, throwing an item. I think the direction is the right idea, but they need to tone down the intensity of the sounds a little bit. So like there's 10 of them in this cave. 5 with items, 5 without. It's a bit on the weird side. And yeah, you're most likely to encounter this sound if you're using them to help you gather items when you're out doing some digging, or if you visit like a farm that you've got where you have the Allays picking up items. You're then going to have like a load of sounds in the mix too. I'm not sure if that's the best idea or not. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we also have some prototype footage of the Allay when it was known as the Wisp. This is thanks to the Secrets of Minecraft video over on the Minecraft channel. I'll link to it in the description box down below. In that video, we got to see an early version of this mob known as the Wisp. This was being developed in the Nether update, which I think was 1.16. You can see Iteration D probably looks the most like the current Allay. And they were even messing around with multiple colours of the Allay too, which look really cute. And I'm just going to say it quickly, wouldn't it be cool if we had a dyeable mob in this game? You could just click on it, give it a new colour, maybe colour code them so you know which ones pick up which items, although they are holding the item in their hand. Here is another one where they hold the item inside of them. As I just said, it's probably better that you can actually see which item they are holding. And here is a couple more images too, but there's also some video footage. And so here you can see the Allay, or the Wisp as it were known, picking up some items from a mob farm and then putting them directly into hoppers, which they then sit on top of and wait for new items, which I think is much better the behavior than what we currently have. Then there's also further testing where they decided that the note block needed to be involved, and again they kind of hover above where the note block is. So yeah, very interesting stuff, but now we are going to head deep underground and check out the changes to the ancient city. Now I don't know for sure, but I might have had a helping hand in a feature that's hidden underneath the portal. It's an idea that I directly suggested to one of the developers. We'll come back to that later on. First of all, we're going to check out the ancient city, which has been overhauled. You can see there's now some new introduction of colors with this wood palette and some new colors of wall too. So there is like a two-tiered thing that's being emphasized here. You've got these little lookout posts at the cross sections, and then you've got these walkways with carpets on to prevent vibrations that activate the Sculk sensors. And it feels like there is a lot more Sculk everywhere, but there's definitely new types of features too. Like, what is this thing? It has some epic loot though. Look at that. That's a top level enchantment. And you would have seen it a moment ago. Yes, there is this pile of wall blocks over here. Maybe the idea is that you pick them up and use them to your advantage as you make your way into the ancient city. So, do you remember this world from our previous video? It's got all of the original ancient city structures, but also all of the new ones too. And the key theme here seems to be variation. These two original structures now have a load of variety types that steadily introduce more and more wood and additional structures in where the existing structure was. You'll notice that the Warden portal now has 3 variants and that they've got a lot more space down the bottom, and that's where something really cool is hidden. And again, for these sections, the theme seems to be variations, which often include a little bit of wood into the structure. And then we have a bunch of unchanged ones right here, which have remained the same. And quite a few sections have simply been redesigned, where the ones in the back are the new design. And what you've noticed is that they've tried to bring 2 tiers to this now by creating a ceiling and a walkway on the top as well as at the bottom. Then we have all of the new stuff with some really interesting shapes and structures that'll be a part of the layout. Again, you can see that wood is a big part of this, as well as the wall blocks. We've got the little wooden walkways like we've already seen in the ancient city we're currently in. At the back here, a few more structures that you'll recognize. Again, there always seems to be a focus on having 2 tiers to the experience now. But the big deal is this one over here, which is a loot chest in it known as the Icebox. As you can see, there are some pressure plates to trip you up at the entrance, but if you head down below, there is this loot chest. So as well as the packed ice and snowballs, you can also find golden carrots and baked potatoes in this chest. And the suspicious stew comes in 2 different varieties. One of them will be the blindness effect, and the other one will be night vision. And I've gone over the loot table and just put all the different types of items you can gather into here. So you can get Other Side, 13 and Cat, notch apples, all of these goodies in various quantities, a randomly enchanted book as well as the Swift Sneak enchantment, and then these 3 items enchanted at a really high level. So I've also created a couple of commands for my amusement where you can generate these loot chests as if you just found them inside the ancient city, and the loot looks pretty good. From breaking a few a moment ago, I got 4 enchanted golden apples. I think they might be a little too frequent, and we might expect to see some of this loot to change in the future snapshots. So some time ago, I was invited to a live stream event with Oraf, one of the Minecraft developers, where we got to brainstorm some ideas on the fly for the game. And what came to me was the idea of having a place where you could find Redstone Tutorials, and it seems that place might be underneath the portal. Now I think there's a way you're supposed to actually set this off, as behind here there are some pistons hooked up with redstone that can be unlocked. So as the player approaches, maybe the intent is that this redstone turns off and that you'll be able to come in here to what is essentially a redstone tutorial area. So in here you'll find some really simple hints that just give you an idea of the capabilities of redstone. On this side we got the target block, and the trick there is that it shows you it can activate a piston. Then this is the bit I thought was supposed to activate the door. It's got quite a few concepts here, like getting levels with a comparator out of a furnace, but if we go ahead and remove that and activate this, then you can see it would activate the doors at the front. This is also a decay circuit, so when the player comes in here to investigate, they can learn about signal strength by watching the redstone lamps turn off, which is basically genius. I like that. In this room, the concept feels a little more vague as to what specifically it's trying to show you, as there's multiple things here. And then there's a couple of empty spaces which definitely have the opportunity to teach you some more concepts about redstone. I absolutely love this idea. I'm so happy to see it in the game. The one comment I have to make is it's in a very hard place for new players to get to, and it tends to be the more advanced players that are probably going to be a little better at redstone anyway, but hopefully this will be of use for people who want to learn redstone. And now let's get to everything else. There is a new advancement called It Spreads for killing a mob near a Sculk catalyst. And you can see it here in the technical changes, where some game events have been renamed. You can find all of them here in the article, along with some of the new details of how that new advancement works. There were quite a few bug fixes, but the one worth mentioning was a way to cheese the Warden, as it wouldn't walk over rails, so you could summon one in and keep it in a particular space, but that behaviour has now been changed. And I'd like to clarify a mistake from my previous snapshot video where we had the boat with a chest. Because it's bigger than a single block, you can actually position it over 9 hoppers at once. If you place hoppers on the side pointing into it, that would be another 12 that can point in, as well as 9 on top. So this is even more powerful than we first thought. And with that, I'm going to have to wrap up the video and say if you enjoyed it, please do leave a like and support the channel and share it with your fellow Minecrafters. That's it from me. I won't see you next week though, but hopefully I'll be able to see you the next week after. Bye bye.